Oh, somebody took me away. Okay,
You're going now.
there we are.
Play it.
I was down to talk to my doctor.
Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Well, good evening. We're going to try this one more time. We apologize for any problems that this may have caused you because we're a little late tonight, but we just had trouble with the computer link up to our YouTube channel. And we wanted to make sure that the people on YouTube had an opportunity to see the show. Hello. So we're starting it over. So welcome to New Tracks. This is where mentors help modelers build better. We try to have a fairly unique show. We hope it's always different for you. We try to make it very non-judgmental. And we hope it's a learning, and most importantly, that you come away having had some fun and actually learning something from our show. So before we go any further, I'd like to ask Father Ron Walters if he could lead us in a short prayer. Father Walters, please.
Oh God, as we express our creativity in creating the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Thank you so very much, Father Walters. We really do appreciate it. And now I'd like to turn and talk about a few announcements before we actually run the show tonight. The first one is about a new show that we've started on Thursday evenings. The first one that we have coming up next is tomorrow evening with John Bucknall. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's only available on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling. So if you'll go to our channel, New Tracks Modeling, and subscribe to it and ring the bell, then you'll get notices of not just tomorrow night's show and be able to watch it live on YouTube and actually communicate with our guests through the chat function at least. But you'll also be able to go back and see a video of the show later on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling. So we hope that you'll be able to do that. And we have a short video to try to give you the flavor of what these shows are all about.
Welcome to the Modeling Lifestyle, where we celebrate how modelers have embraced their modeling and friendships as a lifestyle. We discuss how modeling can become a life passion and lead to lifelong friendships. The goal of the modeling lifestyle is to preserve the modeling and interests of leading modelers in the modeling industry. The modeling lifestyle is sponsored by NGMC, who believes that through bringing hobbyists together with both information and modeling, the hobby will grow stronger with more model builders than ever. NGMC, which started as Narrow Gauge Modeling Company, is focused in 1/4 inch scale across hobbies. NGMC is a market leader in 1/4 inch scale with a range of products from over 50 vendors. In 2021, NGMC became the largest reseller of out-of-production model paint in North America with over 9,000 bottles in stock. Join us every other Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the next Modeling Lifestyle.
So that's what the shows are all about. Something new and different for us than we've ever done before. But we think that it's an important contribution to our hobby. because these videos that we're making of these really talented modelers, that in every way imaginable, really modeling has become a major part, if not a total part of their lifestyle, is important for the history of our hobby and for future generations to be able to see who these people were, what they look like, their mannerisms, how they talk, and who their friends were. So for that, we have the next guest on our show is tomorrow night, is John Bucknall. John is just a fantastic modeler. He's a life member of the NMRA and a dedicated volunteer and participant with that association. And he's got 3 great friends that are also fantastic modelers joining him. Mike Tenner, Lou Sassy, and Chuck Indrola. So I hope that you'll be able to join us tomorrow night on YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling at 7 p.m. Eastern. And if you're not, I hope you're able to see it later or to see a video of it later on. If you have some ideas of people that you'd like to see us interview on that show, please send me an email, jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com, and we'll see if we can't make arrangements for them to appear. After John, then on September the 22nd, David Vaughn is our guest on the show. David, you may know, is the owner of Wit and Wisdom Models, and he's also the current president of O-Scale Kings Association, and just a major influence in the total O-Scale community. So I'm looking forward to David actually being one of the guests. Then I'd also like to talk about another new segment for our show called Women in Modeling. And this is going to be hosted by Kristen Kimmick. Kristen and her husband, David, own a company, 3D Model, 3DP Train, that actually designs and produces 3D models. Both from their own production as other people's production that they print and offer on their website. So Kristen is going to be running this portion of our show for us. It starts on October the 19th, and we're really looking forward to this because I do believe that we can learn an awful lot from the ladies who are in our hobby. And the skills that they have and the kinds of things that they're doing for our hobby. So I wish, I really hope that this is something that is successful for us. And with Kristen behind it, there's no doubt in my mind that it will be. Starting at about the same time, we have another new segment called Let's Go to the Hobby Shop. Now, Let's Go to the Hobby Shop is something that's near and dear to my heart, because I have the greatest, fondest memories of going to my local hobby shop, learning a great deal about modeling from the people that I met there, and having some really close friends, not just from the owner or the employees, but from the other modelers that used to accumulate, particularly on Saturday mornings. It was almost like going to a coffee house, going to your local hobby shop back in those days, and meeting the local modelers that you'd see periodically go there. And it was much about going and meeting other modelers and talking to them and learning from them as it was going to buy something at the local hobby shop. So I have a great person that's going to be running this part of our shows for us, Mark Pendengoff. He's an NMRA member. He's working on his MMR. He's a hobby manufacturer. And he's also the owner of Poggy's Trains out in California. That's a brick and mortar hobby shop. But Mark doesn't stop there. Mark attends many of the various train shows around the country to promote not only his hobby shop, but the hobby. And he's going to be moderating a monthly segment of our shows called Let's Go to the Hobby Shop. And we hope that this is going to be able to emphasize to everybody the similarities and the commonality many of the problems facing modelers that are also facing the local hobby shop owner. Because they have many of the same problems that we do. Where to get materials, how to order it, cost of shipping. A lot of things are similar for them as they are for us. Plus, they have to deal with the internet companies that in many cases may be underpricing them. And they have to try to explain to us why we should still be interested in going to our local hobby shop if there still exists one in our area. Because there are services and capabilities that local hobby shop can provide us that you can't get anywhere else. And I think it's important to illustrate those and to have somebody that's really not only a hobby shop brick and mortar owner, but also a train show attendee, a member of the NMRA that's working on his MMR, and also a modeler who is a model manufacturer. And Mark fills all of those roles. So I hope that this is really going to be something that you enjoy. It's certainly going to be something different for us. Next, I'd like to talk about the help we need on our shows. As you can tell, we're all volunteers that do this. We have some fun doing it, I hope. I think we do. I know that there's one person here tonight, Pat Rivard, that is having a great time, laughing all the way, because he doesn't have to do much tonight. And so he's very happy about that, I think. But if you do have some spare time and could help us with running our shows or working on our website or helping with our marketing or the YouTube operation or just, telling us your opinion of how we can improve our shows. We need all of that kind of input and help. And if you can help us a little bit, we sure would appreciate it. Again, my email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. And I'd love to hear from you, and then we'll talk and see what you'd like to do. The build-alongs that we have on our show are very popular. They, in effect, provide a crutch to all of us who want to build a model, who maybe haven't built a model in no telling how many years. Because you're going to be building the same model that a very talented modeler is going to build on our show. And if you have questions or problems as you build it along with him, then all you got to do is send him an email and he'll give you some help to get over whatever hurdle you may be facing in building the model. So it's about as close as we could come to actually providing a real life mentor for you to help you in your modeling. And we hope you'll take advantage of it. We have all different kinds of models being built from different manufacturers who are giving a discount for the models that are built on our show, so that you're not having to pay the full price of the model if you want to build it along with the modeler on the show. And we have some awfully talented modelers and manufacturers who are actually doing the building of the models on the show. So I hope that you'll pay attention to them and take a look at them. We have all the details listed on our website, newtracksmodeling.com, what the discounts are, when the discounts are available, how to get the discounts, what to do in ordering, and so forth. All of that is on the website. So the ones that we have coming up, in addition to the ones that you're going to see tonight, and I think there's 3 or 4 that you're going to be seeing tonight. On October the 26th, Hangman Creek Dioramas is going to have one of their products. Jeff Dozier, who owns Hangman Creek Dioramas, is going to build one of his kits. It's going to be called the Longboat at Lame Deer Mill, and it is really an outstanding model. When you look at it, it's got everything in the world that you need to finish the diorama for this kit, including the water, the dirt, you name it, and he's included it in the packet of material. And not only that, he's offering it at a 50% discount. This is the first diorama that we've ever tried to do a build along with on our show. And I really do appreciate Jess wanting to do this with us. So this is going to start on October the 26th. The discount of 50% starts October the 1st through November the 30th. So those are the dates you can buy the kit from Jess. at a 50% discount. And again, all of this information is available on our website, newtracksmodeling.com. Then the next one we have is November the 16th. And this is done by New Creations Victorian Railroad Buildings. And Alan Rogers is the owner of this company. And Alan is going to be building a model of his during this build along of St. Mary, Star of the Sea Catholic Church of Ocean City, Maryland. And this is just a spectacular model. We've got photos of it on the website, and you can get more information both from our website as well as Alan's. But Alan will be the builder, and I really do appreciate him wanting to do this for us on our show. Then we have Darwin Lighting Without Wires Company, Michael Groves, going to start on November the 23rd, building one of his kits, his lighting kits without wires. And you're going to be able to explore what this paradigm shift in lighting will do for you. The kit will go on sale using the code NEWTRACKS for 20% off the regular price from October the 23rd through November the 23rd. And I really do appreciate Michael wanting to do this on our show. He does it at a lot of the train shows around the country. And I think you're really going to enjoy it because it's something that is unique and something that I really think could be of benefit to an awful lot of modelers out there. Next, I'd like to talk about My Build. My Build segments we run once a month. The next one that's coming up is September the 21st. Our sponsor for these My Builds are the two magazines that I write for, S-Scale Resource and O-Scale Resource magazines. They're owned by Dan and Amy Darty. And I have a short video of their company. They are the sponsors for the My Build for us that I'd like to run now.
Welcome to the world of scale, O and S railroading. We are your resource for all O and S scale modeling. Both our magazines are advertiser supported and free to read online, download as a PDF, or even print. All advertisers are hot linked to their website, so if you see something you like, just click. Please check out our websites for the current issues. All back issues available free for the O-Scale Resource and the S-Scale Resource magazines. And, if you are a manufacturer, distributor, or retail establishment, please contact us through our website for advertising opportunities.
And I do hope that you'll consider subscribing to both of those magazines. And the reason I say that, number one, it's free to get the subscription. But number two, regardless of what scale you're in, modeling is modeling. And the modeling skills that we all use, we can use in any scale or gauge that we want to model in. So I do think there's an awful lot to be gained from Dan's publication, because the philosophy that they have in producing their publications, both of them, is to bring more modeling back into model railroading. And since that's the purpose of the My Build segments of this show, then it was a perfect match made in heaven, kind of, so to speak, for them to be the sponsor of it. Chris Corse is the one that moderates that segment of our shows for us. Chris couldn't be here tonight, but I do know that he's got people already signed up to show some of their modeling on September the 21st show. And if you have a model that you're building, whether it's completed, halfway finished, a quarter finished, whatever, and would like to show it to us and talk about it a little bit and share your techniques and share what you're really doing in the hobby, we really would appreciate it, because we think it's so important for all of us to be able to share what we're doing with each other as a way of learning different techniques and what different people are doing in our hobby. So you can contact Chris. We do have a slide, I think, with his contact information on it, if we could put that on the screen. There it is. And you can contact Chris. And if you can't get a hold of him, you can contact me at Jim Kello at New Tracks Modeling, and I'll get the information to him and put you in touch with him. He had to work this evening, and wish him the best in his pursuit. But we do also hope that you'll share some of your modeling with us on the next My Bill on September the 21st. Well, with those announcements out of the way, I'd like to start the program tonight. First one up is Gary Shurgold, MMR, with a series that I think is really taken off. It's called Bits and Pieces. And Gary, I think you're doing a great job with it. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Jim. See if we can get this. I hope that came up.
No,
Nope.
No.
share screen, Jen.
Oh, I don't know what's going on every time. Sorry, folks. Okay. Share screen to share.
There
No,
you go,
not
Gary.
me. Pardon me?
You
Got
got
it.
it.
It's up there? Sorry.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
About 9 photos, but there it is.
There it is. Okay. Sorry, folks.
No problem.
Okay. Potential railroad components and everyday objects. And welcome to Bits and Pieces for tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about card containers, aluminum tubes, things like that, like these round objects. I've collected these over a period of time, and you can see these ones here were actually, I bought stamps. I bought quite a bit of them over a period of time. And these little cylinders I kept, these here are cigar containers. This here is a medical container. And right here, believe it or not, is this held a charge for joining railroad track. But over a period of time, I collected these. And whoops, sorry. So here we have these tubes here. Now, what I do with these is I take one of them and I take very thin scribed siding. You can see it's scribed here. I measure how much I need, cut it out to just go over top and bottom just a little wee bit. And you can see here, I then apply glue on the wood material, the scribe siding, and wrap it around the tube, wrap it with elastics, let it dry overnight. And then you can come back. I then sand this smooth on the top and bottom, put a piece on the bottom because you'll see later what's going to go in here. Then everything is smooth. And this is what you can do with it. Here is a water tank on top of a building. Here is a pickle barrel that I've done with a load of pickles fermenting inside the vat. You can see here I've done quite a few pickle barrels, all different sizes. So those little containers come in very handy. Now this tube here, what I've done here is I've used it and cut the metal off. And then you end up with a device, same thing, wrap it, and you can build a little tank for on top of your one of your industrial buildings. Now, this is a larger tube that I saved. And what I do with those is they ended up being silos. A little bit of masking tape around them, some scribed lines, some coloring, and you come up with some really beautiful silos out of that tubing. Now, with the ones from the cigar containers, I've used those, and they get painted. And as you can see here, they are stacks on this part of this generating station here with the tubes or the piping coming down. And that's bits and pieces for this week, Jim.
Well, I think that's great. And as I've said many times to you, and best of all, it's free.
Yes, it is free. It's stuff we'd normally throw away. So as I say, I've got a bit of a collection of tubes.
I think it's great. Thank you so much, Gary. See you next week.
Thank you.
And next we have now the owner of Seaport Models. And this is something that I think is becoming very popular. And I really appreciate Bruce doing this for us. So Bruce, I will turn it over to you, sir.
One second, and we'll be there. I think we're on.
We're on.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you for having me back, Jim. And tonight we're going to wrap the session up on how to build the passenger steam ferry. What we're going to do first, though, we're going to look at where we've been. We're going to do a quick review of where we've been on this assembly, because going back 3 weeks now. First, this is the Taurus. This is the boat Taurus. This is the prototype that we originally designed this kit from. These are the laser cut wood parts with the resin hull that we've been working with. These are the fittings or deck furniture for the vessel, and these are all included in the kit. This is the assembly drawings that we've been working with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. This is the application of the wood, laser cut wood deck onto the hull. This is the results of that application. It's stuffed down in between the bulwarks. We spent quite a bit of time talking about this wall with that curvature board that we glued to it. This is a deck house wall that needed a curve to it, and the board that we glued to it gave it that curve. There's some windows getting ready for installation. There's some doors getting ready. This is the skylight. This is probably the hardest part of the kit, and it's the ladder. This is the deck house walls, fully built, awaiting assembly. Here we have the assembly of the deck house. Here we have the components that make up the pilot house. This is the counter of the pilot house. This is the beginning of the assembly. This is the binnacle, the ship's wheel, and the telegraph inside the pilot house, waiting for 3 walls to go on. It's assembled. Now it has no skirt around the front. We're going to put that on. This is a view of where we are in this model at this time. Where we're going to go tonight, we're going to start with the smokestack. This is a resin smokestack. It's hollow from about here, about down to here. This piece in the bottom is a laser cut wood piece. You're going to put a bevel on the outside and the inside edge of this. See the bottom of the smokestack? You're going to take some material out of there as well. You're going to mount this onto this base, and you're gonna give it a slight rake. Rake being, it's gonna lean towards the back. You can see it here, I believe. Not a big rake, but a slight rake. Now, what we're gonna do here, we're gonna talk a minute about this base. When you're at this point, I suggest you come to the front and to the rear of this base and put a pencil mark. And the front is determined by the leaning, by the rake. Then take a 20 thousandths drill bit and just make a little hole on both sides of here. And we're going to use that in a few seconds here. Now we're going to talk about the davits. These are pewter castings. The davits are the tools that allow you to launch and retrieve your boat, small boat. And you can see some thread up here. We have a place for that. You're going to wrap the thread around this winch right here, and you're going to run it down to the cleat. And you're going to wrap it 6-7 times around that cleat, make it look good. And then you're going to cut that line off right there. This line up here, you're going to leave on there. Don't cut that off. We're going to use that eventually. Now the whistle pipe. This is the steam whistle pipe. This is a brass tube. This is a pewter casting. This little stem right here, you're going to have to take quite a bit of material off of that. I'll be honest with you. It's not going to fit in this tube if you don't. But once you get that in there, you're all set. You glue it in. But I would definitely paint the whistle and the tube before you put it together. Leave a little bit of paint off the bottom to allow for proper gluing. Here we have some very basic tissue eye bolts, and we're going to need those. Take them off the sprue, clean them up a little bit, and spray them with a metal paint, some kind of a metal paint. That doesn't make any difference what it is. Here is where we put those little round nuggets right there. They're the wheels for the slider. And we'll put them on the other side of the boat as well. This is the rear raised deck. This is one-piece resin right here. You're going to center this to the back of the stern of the boat. A quick measure from here to this laser cut line here, from here to this laser cut line will tell you you are square. Drop a little glue here, a little CA glue here, and a little CA glue here, and you're done. That's the end of that. Okay, small boat cradle, laser cut part. We're going to put these cradles into these holes on the deck house deck. Before you do that, you need to take some material out of the center of this, both of these. The small boat that I give you in the kit has quite a keel on it. And if you don't take more material on there, it's not going to rest well on that. Anyway, do that and glue them in place. And there you are with them in place. All right, now we're going to do something we could have done earlier, but we're going to do it now. We're going to take this deck house roof and we're going to place it on the frame of the deck house walls. There's the assembled walls, and you can see the curvature here. So what you've got here is a curvature this way, and you've also got a curvature pushing this wall out. So you've got two curves now on this wall. There's the roof. I find 3 points of impact works well. One up close in the front, one in the middle, and one right next to the skylight. You do not need to put any pressure back here. This third one gives us plenty of pressure for a good seal here. You don't need a lot of pressure on this to begin with. And there it is on the deck house. All right, now we're going to talk about some of the deck house fittings. The one we're going to spend the most time talking about is the railings. The railings, I'm going to carefully remove the 4 pieces of railing from the carrier. Fit the vertical posts on the railings, which are here, into the pre-cut holes in the roof. They're here. They run around here. Cut the end of each one of these posts to form a point for easy fitting. Now take the railings and soak them in a water and wood glue solution, lay them on wax paper and let them dry. After it's dried, insert the rail post in all the holes required for the particular rail you are installing. Make sure that the posts do not go through the roof, but they fit flush with the underside of it. And that'll give you a nice, smooth, flat finish all the way around. Now, do not glue from the top of the deck. Turn the whole assembly over and put your glue in from the bottom. You can use CA glue. Put it in from the bottom. Where the front rails meet the side rails, just take a little canopy glue and put a little bit right on the edge up here. And take your hand and push it together, and it'll stick. It'll stick very quickly. The other things we're going to deal with here are, well, we got the smokestack. Before you put this smokestack on the deck, what I suggest you do is install this whistle pipe, and that would go on the smokestack on the pilot house side. This is a piece of brass rod, 20 thousandths, painted white, and that is a blow-off pipe, and that goes on the rear of the smokestack. The rear being the side that the thing is leaning towards. So this stack is going to lean towards the rear of the boat. The pilot house is on the forward portion, forward of the boat. Okay. Now, once that's been set in place here, then take that whole assembly, and you're going to find there's a mark on the top of the deck. You glue this in place, making sure that your bend, your rake is square to the back of the boat. The next thing you want to do is you want to deal with the davits that we built earlier. Go to the bottom of the davit and take some material off that pewter. Just round the edges a little bit. Go to the deck.
Bruce, what's the davit? What's a davit?
A davit is a mass that controls the small boat. It lifts the small boat off. It's a mass that allows lines to go up through it. And then you pull the lines down, it'll lift the boat off the cradle. And then this davit will swing out over the water and drop the boat into the water.
Gotcha, thank you.
Okay. All right. Before we talk more about the davit right now, we got to put these oars in the boat. Put the paddle side on the bow of the boat. That's where they belong. And take this boat and put it on the deck on the cradles that we'd earlier talked about. And now you're going to take the davits, put them aside a second, and you're going to drill about an 80 thousandths hole right here and here at the forepeak and the stern of that small boat. Don't go through the deck. Just make a little bit of a hollow there. Drop just a very little amount of CA glue in there. You put too much in, you're going to be holding it all night. So just put a little drop in there to get it going. It'll set up very fast. As you can see, I've pointed these davits inboard. This one's inboard and this one's inboard. When I want to launch this boat, this davit's going to pivot and come out. And it's going to drop that small boat down into the water. And when I want to raise that small boat, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pivot that. I'm going to drop a line, and I'm going to pick up the boat, and I'm going to raise it, and I'm going to rotate in, and I'm going to drop it on its cradle. That's the operation on the small boat. All right. Here's your smokestack with the whistle pipe installed. This is where your pilot house is going to go. You can take a line, tie it onto this little handle right here, and put it through the roof of the pilot house. The guy wants to blow the whistle in the pilot house, he just pulls the string and the whistle blows. There's another pipe hidden behind here we talked about earlier. That's a blow-off pipe. All right, there's our railings all installed. All right, now we're gonna put the pilot house on the deck. There's a couple of options you have here. This is one option you're gonna have to take. You're gonna have to put it on all assembled, which is the way they did it at Mystic when they were rebuilding this boat. Modular building like this is very common in the maritime industry anyway. They build portions of a boat, they bring it to the dock, or they bring it to the building and they assemble it. But what I want to show you here is, if you want to make this roof here on the pilot house, if you want to extend that roof back towards the stern of the boat, then you're going to have to level this pilot house up. Right now, it's high in the front and low in the bottom. You can see that line going down here. That can very easily be done by taking some strip stock and laying it down here. A little bit of carving, and raise this stern up. So now if you want to run a roof from here all the way back, you can do that. If you run it off of this roof line right here, it's just going to go down all the way. It's going to look terrible. That's that. There's the finished assembly. Now we're going to talk about taking this top assembly, which is the deck house and the pilot house. It's all assembled right now. And we're going to drop that down on top of the bulwarks, this being this railing here. If you remember in the beginning of the program, we took the time to fit this curvature to the bulwarks. So at this point in time, really all you're going to do is you're going to drop a little bit of glue on the top of these bulwarks at various places, very little, and you're just going to place this on there. And it's just going to sit there. You don't have to do any clamping or anything else. It's just going to work. There's our ladder. And that's where it goes, right there. And there she sits, the bow of the boat. There's a side view of it. This is the view of a single bit with a line tied around it. And by the way, this is a pretty sloppy way to leave a line open like this. This should be tied off so it's nice and tight. That's pretty obvious. That's not a good job right there. All right, we're going to talk about this for a minute. Before you put all of this together, you would have put on this casting right here, which is a fire hose. And this is where you would have put it. And you would have put another one on the bow of the boat. You would have put this life ring on the wall. And you would have built and assembled and installed this lamp. This is a Tichy 8027 lamp, hollow in the center. This is a 20 thousandths piece of rod, brass rod. You're going to take it and you're going to make a right angle bend and leave about 1/8 of an inch stock coming down. And you're going to drive it right through that open shaft. You see it sticking out the bottom a little bit here. Don't cut that off. That's your light bulb. There's no sense in going back and trying to put a light bulb in. We just did it for you. Go up here, drill a hole in the wall, 20 thousandths. Push that thing in and glue it in place from the inside. You get yourself a nice little lamp there. You can see down here is a handrail. There's a handrail right there. You're going to see them in a couple of places. Those handrails are Tichy grab rails. Use them in all your trains. Very simple. Right here, we have two 40 thousandths half round styrene pieces, strips. This just marks the outside of where a door would be for passengers to leave the boat, go onto a dock and come back onto the boat, so on and so forth. I suggest you install these, and then I suggest you cut this material right out of here and just hang a little chain across here. That would look really cool. There's some more Tichy grab rails. One here, 20 thousandths drill bit. This one here, you don't need any drill bit. You just take this stem right here and you glue it onto the face. This is an oval grab rail that wraps around the front of the pilot house. One thing we gotta do here, we haven't done yet, is we gotta put this bottom runner on. This is a HO 4x4 scale stock, wood strip stock. We had the top rail on, but we hadn't put the bottom wire on yet. So that's gonna be done. That's not a big deal. All right. Support posts for the deck house. These are 47,000 styrene rods. This is rod. You got to measure from the deck to the underside of the deck house roof. The best way to do that, because we don't know how you put this roof on. We don't know a lot of things at this moment. So we can't give you a measurement. What you're going to do is you're going to take some cardboard, thin cardboard, very thin, and you're going to cut a piece and maybe put a fold on it and get a measurement, a distance from here to here. Take it off. The best way to do it, I think, is to put your cardboard in here, up against this wall, and push it up top, up here, and just take a pencil and mark it and just go across that edge right there. Then cut your 47,000 stock longer than what your dimension is. And then continue to file a little off and keep putting it in here until you have a very firm, comfortable fit. You obviously want this post the same height as this post. This post you got a little leeway on because your deck is going up here. So this post in the back is going to be longer than these two. Once these three posts are set in place, you got a 30 thousandths half round styrene stock coming around the back here. That's a handrail. Glue it in place, and you're done. I'm just going to throw this in. We also offer this kit in a full hull version. A full hull, this is what you're looking at here, is a full hull. And the only difference between this kit and the kit we've been talking about is this piece is going to be glued on here. There it is. The hull's all made for you. Okay. Then we're going to take it. We got a rudder. We got a propeller. And we got 20 thousandths diameter brass rod stock. You're going to come up here and you're going to drill a hole, 20 thousandths diameter hole going in here. You're going to cut off a little piece of the brass rod. You're going to glue that into the hole that's on the propeller. Let that sit. You're going to come up here and you're going to push that rod in there, and that propeller is set. Then you're going to take the rudder and you're going to attach the rudder here and here. And that's what you're going to get. Rudder, propeller. There's all kinds of names for all these things, but to keep it simple is a rudder and a propeller. And there it is, the side view. Completed. What I want to share with you, that's pretty much it for the assembly. What I want to share with you now is some finished photos from our website, Modelers Gallery. This is a model by Bob Lawson in his Ohio River layout. This is Rod Vance, his 1950s Bucky's Crossing layout. I think we might have shown this one before, but I don't think we showed this one. This one is the same Bucky's. And there's a car barge with the cars getting loaded in. Pretty interesting little layout right there. This is Yvonne Hillebrand, Cambridge Creek Harbor. There's the boat. There's a second picture there. There's the boat over there. This is one of our kits. This is a dragger, fishing dragger as well. This is John Sullivan's doing a little boating down south. Then right next to it is a little sloop. I think that's our H-138 sloop. There's John's boat again. A little close-up view. This boat was built by a friend of mine, Jerome Morris. Jerome built the first boat. And this is his hands holding it up, trying to show me what a great job he did. And it did come out nice. This was the first build we did of this kit. Before I close, I want to share with you a couple of thoughts. The prototypes of the model we have been building in miniature were designed, built, owned, and operated by local families, captains, railroads, or investors, to list a few. We have spent considerable time over the last 4 weeks to discuss building the model similar to a prototype vessel. Yet I feel a sense of responsibility to mention the people who built and worked them. They were designed and built by knowledgeable and expert craftsmen, many of whom were first-generation citizens of this country. Trees that provided the lumber for their vessels' constructions were often handpicked by the actual prospective owners. Little, if any item was left to chance. They were piloted and crewed by strong, knowledgeable sailors who were committed to the safe, timely passage of material items, medical services, educational opportunities, and spiritual needs on the islands, harbors, and peninsulas of the East and West Coast, Great Lakes, and rivers in these United States and Canada. They were subjected to the ways of the ocean, weather, and human frailties. They were the lifeline for mainland harbors, peninsulas, and islands. In many cases, the cargo they transported were originally delivered to the harbor facilities by our nation's railroads. The maritime industry and railroad worked hand in hand in the development of this great nation. This is what our little passenger and freight steamer in miniature is all about. Thank you all for your time. I sincerely hope I have offered you entertainment and information regarding how to build our kit, but also a little insight into where the rail meets the sea. Thank you. Any questions?
Bruce, I can't thank you enough for doing this. This has really been an education for a lot of us, and I really so appreciative of your work that you put in on this and for doing this for us. And I truly hope that I know that we've had some conversations. I hope that you'll think about coming back in the future and maybe doing something a little different for us.
I had one question on YouTube.
Sure.
Okay.
One was wanting to know, are all the ships or boats built with leaning stacks?
No, not all of them. No, and you don't have to put the leaning stack on a boat. The rake on the prototypes were very, very small. You can get away without them. But I think I chose to put them on because it gives a certain appeal. It gives a certain look to the boat. It goes along with the curvatures of the hull, the deck. It's one more angle. And whenever you put angle to something, I always feel the more angles you have on something, the more interesting it is. So that's my decision to do that.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bruce, those were fantastic builds that you showed. Very, very interesting and beautiful models. If you were going to hang around for a few minutes, I just sent you a private message on the chat. If I can get a hold of you can I get a hold of you directly on your website?
You certainly can. Yeah, okay. You can email me, you can call me.
Okay.
You mean right now you want to get a hold of me on the website?
No, I have some questions for you about what hull, if you have a hull that might work out for me.
Oh, sure. You can call me. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. If I don't answer, leave a message. I'll call you back.
Great.
Love to talk to customers on the phone.
Great.
Absolutely. And
thank you.
Maybe we can help you out.
Great presentation. I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I do.
Bruce, take care.
Thank you very much.
Talk to you later.
Right. Bye-bye.
Well, next we have a really different kind of build along. This is Father Ron Walters with Paul Egret's card model design of a service station. Father Ron, welcome.
Thank you.
As I say, folks, this is the fun of doing a live show with volunteers. We're all learning, so just bear with us here.
I'm going to have to leave and come back.
Okay. I tell you what, let me go to the next person, and then we'll come back to you, Father Ron, a little bit later. Well, let's go to our next build along then. This is with Richard Rand's Berkshire Valley kit of an OM30 OM3 ore car. It's being built by one of our really talented modelers, Martin Breckfield, MMR. Martin, welcome.
Oh, you caught me just in time.
How is that? How is it?
The furnace filter and I were having a discussion.
Oh, I got you.
It won, unfortunately. Let's see. Oh, let's go back to where I was. There we are. Share screen. And I think that's where we're supposed to be, plus or minus a decade. So, picking up where we were from last week, we had these pieces to build the hopper body within the frame. We had them all cut out, we had them glued up, the double thickness laminated. Now it's just a matter of putting these little pieces all together inside the frame. Sounds fairly straightforward. And actually it is fairly straightforward. There's a few tricks along the way, nothing too complicated though. Except for this. Honestly, this is the hard part. This is probably the hardest thing to do on this entire build. Freeing these pieces up is the easy part. Putting them together and putting them on the car part where they belong properly is the tricky part. It's the one tricky part of this whole car build. At least it is for me. So you would take out these brace posts, brace caps. This is what holds up the slope sheet of the hopper body. Parts you can just barely tell are there if you look at the end of the car, but they do make the car complete and not, missing these, it looks a little funny. So you have to struggle your way through this. It's a little tricky, but it's not too painful. I say that with only a small scab on my one finger. Here's what you have to do. Okay, let's back up for a second. These are marked. And that's where 4 of these, and there are 8 of them, 4 of these and 4 of these go on the ends at right angles. So what you want to build is something like this. And you want to make sure you get all 4 with the bevels in the right same direction. Because if you get it backwards, that's not going to work. So you're going to get these glued together. You want them at 90 degrees, as straight as you can get them. And that can be a little tricky. And this is why working on a sheet of glass becomes handy, because you can slide these together, put a little weight behind the one piece, slide them right together into the little markings. I put just a touch of goo, because you've got end grain, and then take it apart and put it back together with some medium viscosity CA. Get all 4 of these together, and it's pretty stable. It's a little delicate, so you don't want to be like playing handball with it or anything, or dropping on the floor where you can't find it too many times. But once it's together, set it aside, get the second one, put it together, get them together the same way, get them all facing the same direction, get them straight. Here's where it gets more fun. That line you saw, let's go back. That line right there, that's on the outside, it's on the other side of this piece. But that line is now where these get aligned, glued onto the outside of the slope sheet. And you want to be able to just see the line and put it into place. So now you have this really delicate piece, all in alignment. And it turns out these 4 pieces come down and hit the frame of the base of the car. I'll show you how that works in just a slider form. And you can do this, actually you can do this without breaking it back off and shattering these or taking these apart. I didn't break any of them off. You just kind of push it in gently. And actually, I test fitted it several times, so I know you can push it in, take it back out without breaking these off. Despite the fact they look like they would snap right off very, very easily. Okay. So first thing though, we got to put the bottom pieces in. There were bevels right here. Remember last week we glued in these 4 bevels on each side. One of these pieces gets, the 2 board piece gets glued in here. Now, here's one of the tricks to getting this to work out nicely and neatly and making good seams. If you view down the end of this, you want to actually file off and add a bevel to the bottom and the top. Okay, the instructions say use a file because this is the resin impregnated cardstock cardboard. I just took a drum sander in my Dremel, my battery powered Dremel, and just did it by hand with that. If you've got a steady hand and a good eye and you're very, very gentle and you can creep up on things without hurting it, you can use that. Otherwise, use a sanding block or a file, but get this bevel on top and bottom. So then you can glue this in here and you'll get a nice tight fit at the base, and you'll have a flat upright facing piece for this next side piece to drop in right on top of it. This drops right in, a little bit of glue on the outside on these frame members. It drops right into place. You got a nice tight seam. And also the benefit of doing this, now the top of this is very, very, very close to flush and requires very little, if any, sanding or filing to get a nice tight fit across the top of the car. So there's your tip for putting this together. Make sure you've got the parts beveled. When it says to sand things and bevel them, do it. It makes everything fit together just a little bit better. Or a lot better. So now you have these together. These pieces go in between. Put another bevel across the bottom. You can see how this is sitting here. There's a bevel on the underneath of this. So that beveled edge fits right in here. The rest, I took a little bit of bevel on the outside edges of these parts, but it was more of a fit it in, test fit it, make sure it fits nice and snug and smooth. The front edge is across the base here. And then you have to make sure that 1, 2, 3, 4 of these are sitting on the that's not what we wanted. 1, 2, 3, and 4 across here. So you're going to match up a lot of surfaces simultaneously. So you're going to match up the base up here at the top, put a little bevel on there. Then you're going to make sure that these 4 beveled pieces fit across the bottom here. One of the nice things about using a little bit of goo and CA to assemble this, it may be tight. It's not 100% stiff. It'll bend a little. It'll give a little. So you can test fit this and adjust it a little bit 3 or 4 times until you get it where you think it's going to fit just right. You have all the bevels perfectly right. Then you have to get daring and put a little glue on every surface. Well, these 4 surfaces to start with. And then I actually glue these with a very, very fine tip on my CA bottle from the inside through the ends and through the base. I'm not going to try to magically push it into place and smear glue all over everything, but it'll sit down, and it's not terribly difficult, but it does take a little bit of patience. So that's what's the recommendation here is test fit it gently. It will fit between there. If it doesn't fit between there, don't force it. Hit it with a little bit of a sanding block just along the edges until it fits snugly and you can slide it in. If it fits nice and snug, you're good to go. So that's pretty much what it looks like once you have it all assembled. It's fairly close. I've actually built the larger car that Berkshire Valley makes. I don't know how much bigger that one is, but it's a little bit bigger car. Same experience. You get it pretty close. And what's nice is this overlapping. You don't see, like on some cars, you don't see any light passing through. So you got a good seal. Okay, so everything's in place, everything's glued. Now you got to put the hatch in the bottom. And there's two pieces. And you got to cut them out, laminate them back to back. Oh yeah, and you're going to get the holes to line up because you're going to use them later. So if they're offset, well, then you got to drill them out. But this is pretty easy to do. They're identical. Just line them up with your fingers, a little bit of glue, put some clips on it, and you're good to go again. Okay, so we're just going to glue that hatch part into place. There's your two holes again. That's what it looks like from the inside. That's what it looks like from the outside. And then I guess you can, yeah, there's where you can see the those four supports on each end, and they come down and rest on these four beams. I'm going to stop there because that's enough pain and suffering for one night with filing and having angles and geometry and no trigonometry tonight, but it all goes together with a little bit of patience. That's the most challenging part of this entire car, honestly. Other than that, it's a very, very easy build. So like I said last time, and I'll say it again, this is a good novice starter kit. This will have a little challenge, but if it doesn't have a little challenge, then you didn't learn anything anyhow. If it's too easy, it's all gift. There's no learning process. So next week, we'll come back, put all the detail parts on it, all the little goodies, all the little finishing parts, do some painting and some finishing. We'll see you here next Wednesday.
Martin, thank you so very much. I really do appreciate it. Car's really looking nice, I think.
It's a nice kit. It builds a nice little car. You know, the ON30 guys should be snapping up half a dozen at a time and assembly lining them out.
Gotcha. Thanks so very much.
Sure.
Well, Father Ron, could I come back to you, or are you still having trouble?
I think I'm okay. I haven't tried this before, so we'll
Okay.
see what we can do here. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is part 4. We're going to do the roof, the gas island, and the driveway. I began construction of the roof by inverting the building and tracing its edges onto a piece of serial cardboard. I added 2 scale feet to the overhang to the tracing after squaring the tracing up. I measured the halfway point from front to back and scored that line in order to bend it in half for the ridge of the roof. I added 2 pieces of 1/8-inch square basswood to stiffen the roof, and I layered 4 layers of cereal box cardboard and 1 layer of a thinner cardboard into a stack so that I could create the gas island. You can see the gas island in the upper left hand of the screen. I don't know whether my cursor is showing or not, but it's up here in the upper left hand corner. I drilled 3 holes in the island after I cut it, used Paul's drawing to make sure that I got the exact size of the island, and drilled 3 holes in it and used the point of 3 toothpicks to act as locating pins for the posts that are going to hold the roof up. I used Tootsie Roll Pop. You can see the Tootsie Roll Pop in the center of the screen. And I used the sticks from that to create the 3 posts. I also used some 3 layers of the cereal cardboard to create the core of the gas pumps, which you can see right underneath the gas island. And I curved the top because the Phillips 66 gas pumps have a curved top to them. So you can see the curved tops on here. I used a sanding stick to curve the top. I put them all on the painter's tape so that I could base coat them. I shaped them. I mounted all these shapes onto the painter's tape, and then the underside of the roof and the pieces I primed with gray primer. I turned the roof over and used a primer black, flat primer black on the top of it. And the reason I did that is so that once I put the roofing material on the roof, if there were any gaps in the course of gluing it down, you wouldn't see the cereal box printing on the top. While that paint dried, I worked with Inkscape to edit and resize the Phillips 66 gas pumps that I downloaded from Google Images. When I was growing up, there were 2 gas pumps at our local Phillips 66 station. One was regular and one was ethyl. And you can see the ethyl on the right and the regular on the left in this picture. I had to measure Paul's drawings to find out how tall the gas pump would be. And I took off about 5 millimeters of the gas pump for the globes that are going to fit on top of these. You'll notice that the ethyl one on the right is kind of a square pump and doesn't have the same globe. But earlier models of the ethyl, which I found online, did have a globe on the top that said ethyl. And I'll show those in a few minutes. I did this, I made actually 2 copies of each of them so that I would have a front and a back. In case in gluing all of these things together, that there might be a problem, I would have at least one side that would face away from the viewer, one side facing the viewer, so that the bad side could go to the back. I made actually 3 copies of each of these. And you can see the 2 sets here, but I made 3 sets of these. One that would be on the bottom, a second that I would cut out just the area where you would tell how much gasoline you're putting in your car. And I glued that piece to a piece of clear plastic. And then the top, I would cut that out. And so there were 3 layers to the gas pump. And I made those so that they could be glued onto the core. I painted, after the primer dried, I painted with flat black acrylic paint around the edges of the pumps. The fascia of the pumps were the colored pieces, but outside edges were all black. Then I turned to the globe itself. You can see on the right here, either the bigger pieces or the smaller ones, you can see the ethyl globe and the regular 66 globes. And I had to print these up several times to get the globe the right size. After doing that, I cut it out and then glued it to a piece of index card, and then cut those out and glued them back to make the globe. Now, these globes won't be lighted, but you'll be able to see the ethyl and the regular when you put them together. Here's a picture of the island that's been spray painted gray. I've cut lines into it to indicate the expansion joints in the island. And I've mounted the 3 Tootsie Roll Pop sticks onto the island. Before I mounted them, I painted them with some acrylic silver that I had. I don't remember the brand of it, I'm sorry. But I make sure that they look like they were steel, at least, or aluminum, one of the 2. You can see that the gas pumps there now show some degree of a 3D effect in having that top layer cut out where the amount of gas shows. And there's actually a piece of plastic in there, and it shines if you hold it up to the light in the right way. In this particular picture, you can see the glass globes have just been glued. You can see the white tacky glue underneath it hadn't dried yet, but they're mounted on top of the two gas pumps. I then turned to the roof, and on the underside of the roof, I painted the edges of the roof all around the edge with the same color of antique white that I used on the building itself, so that once if anyone picks it up and turns it over, you don't see the gray, but you see the same color of paint as is on the building. I then turned to the style of roof covering, and I decided to use the tar paper strips. I used 3 different colors. I used a black, a light gray, and a dark gray. Now, when you see the end of the model, you're going to see that it hasn't been weathered yet. I haven't finished the weathering on the roof, but I figured that perhaps the owner of this, Rudy is his name, that he would want at least the roof to be maintained well, so there'd be no rust on the tools that he would need to change tires and do other kind of work in the garage. So I made sure that the roof was well maintained. I cut the strips into 3/8 inch wide strips to use on the roof, and I sort of jumbled them all together so that when I would pick one up, it wouldn't be the same as the one before necessarily. And I used just plain old Elmer's glue smeared with my finger onto the cardboard subroof. In this particular photo, you can see the different styles of roof covering. And I also found an old coffee stirrer. You can see that white and red and white stirrer that you sometimes get when you buy coffee. And I dipped it in my flat black paint so that at least on the inside of the top, there would be paint. I did have to paint the inside. This is 2 pieces. I cut it in half to use for the 2 spaces on the roof. One is the vent that you need to have in a bathroom, or you can't flush the toilet. It overflows if you don't have that air behind the water. And the other one is for the heater in the business area of the garage. So again, this has not been weathered. Finally, we have the completed building. You can see I did kind of do a template, another piece of cereal box cardboard that I cut 8-foot space expansion joints into to sort of act as a template in case this gets mounted on someone's layout. I use a little bit of painter's tape rolled up underneath the island to secure the island in place while the glue dried as I mounted it onto the underside of the roof, the filling area. And you can see both sides. I did add also a vent for the garage area. You would want some way to vent the gasoline or the fumes from working on a car. You sometimes have to start the engine to time the belts and such. And so you need to make sure the garage door is open, but in the winter time, that might be a bit of a trick. So I decided to put a vent in above the bathrooms so that the garage could be vented, all that gas could be vented. I did use some India ink and alcohol to age the building itself. So you can see a little bit of aging there. Afterwards, I removed the painter's tape, and you can actually lift the building off the template. You can use the template then to, and resize the template as you need to mount it on your layout. And that sort of brings us to the end of the build. There's the completed building. You see the vents are leaning a bit because the glue was still wet and hadn't dried yet. but they're now vertical. They're not leaning. So, any questions?
Outstanding model, Father. Just a beautiful, beautiful model.
Father Ron, I thought you and Dave did an absolutely wonderful job on that model.
Well,
And-
thank you, Paul.
And showing both sides and showing both ways of making it, I think was very helpful. So people can actually combine the two methods. Now, if I can only get you to show people how to use Inkscape.
Well, no, we've already solved that. Sometime probably in March of next year, Father Ron and Greg Cassidy are going to team up, and they're going to show us all how to use that Inkscape free software.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. I will be very attentive on that, hopefully.
Father Ron, I think it came out great, but I do have one question.
Sure.
Tell us all, how hard is it to eat a Tootsie Roll Pop when you don't have the stick anymore?
It's not easy, believe me.
Oh, it figures. Father Ron, thanks so much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Glad to help.
Well, now I want to turn to something that's a little different in a material that I've always had trouble with, and that's white metal. But Pat Rivard has been building a white metal crane model from Crow Industries, isn't it, Pat? He's just done a beautiful job with it, and supposedly he's going to finish that crane model tonight. So, Pat, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jim. Okay. Can everyone see that okay?
Not yet.
Okay.
Started screen sharing, but all it does is black.
It's coming. It's
Oh, there
coming.
it goes. There it is.
Takes forever. I'm really slow tonight. Anyway, this here, I think you can see it okay. Working with cast metal parts in a kit.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see what's going on here. We seem to be having a problem.
You want me to come back because we've got such a full show?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, let me come back to you. Let's go now to Motrac's model. Jeff Adam is the owner of the company with Greg Cassidy, and this is an S-scale model of a Firehouse. Greg, Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. Jeff, do you want to say anything first before I start going through it?
I did ship out all the orders. So the last order went out yesterday. That was for the S scale. So everybody should have their orders. Hopefully by today or tomorrow.
Jeff, I really do appreciate you and Greg doing. Thank you so much for wanting to participate. And I'm really glad that you decided to do it in S scale.
Yeah, I already blew the market out when I released that kit last year. But I think, next year when we do it again, we're going to do a whole new building.
Oh, that's great. Maybe you can come back on the show and build it for us.
Hey, with Greg's help, I can.
That's great.
All right, everyone. I will hope that I don't have any gremlins tonight. Welcome to my workshop. As they said, we're going to be building the Motrac model's Alton Firehouse. I will be building it in S scale. The kit is available in N, HO, S, and O. This is week one. What we will first do is review the tools and the supplies that we went over at the introduction last month. I will go over the build schedule for the next 5 weeks. I'll show you the prototype and the contents of the kit, and we'll go ahead and paint and assemble the tower for this. I've talked to a couple of firefighters, and we're figuring that this tower was for drying hoses, but we don't have any actual information on that, but that's our guess.
It was also used as a lookout tower.
Well, somebody mentioned that, but there's only a window on one side, so we figured that must be looking towards the fire chief's house. So these are the kits, or I'm sorry, these are the tools that I usually get out when I'm going to build a kit, and I'll go over the ones that I especially found useful when building this one. A couple of clamps. I used both some large ones and some small ones. Couple of blades, an X-Acto blade, and I also used a scalpel. It was very handy when doing the diamond shingles, and a set of tweezers. I also like to use 1, 2, 3 blocks. Those are metal blocks that are 1 inch by 2 inch by 3 inches. I use them for both weights and for holding stuff together or holding it plumb when something's drying. And I also found a lot of use for a sanding stick or some sandpaper. You may use different tools, but these are what I use predominantly in building this kit. As far as the colors go, I used mostly the colors that were suggested in the instructions, and that's on the left there, the white, a signal or caboose red, and a country gray. Now, I was painting my kit to look just like it does on the box. You, of course, can paint yours differently, however you'd like, but these are close to the colors that the actual prototype building used. Also, there's some other items here that we'll go through. I used a couple of different glues, a tacky glue, canopy glue, and a liquid PSA. I also used a couple of stains, and we're going to show 2 ways of putting mortar onto a brick chimney, and I used spackling and a distress crayon, so you'll see how those both work. Now, as far as the schedule for this build, this is week 1, and we're going to go through the tools and supplies. We will go through the steps in the schedule. I'll show you the prototype and the kit contents, and we'll start painting and assembling the tower. For week 2, we'll be assembling and painting the walls, and the walls are 2 parts, so you'll see what I mean. We'll also be painting and assembling the doors and painting the corner trim. And on week 3, we'll be painting and assembling the windows, installing the windows and shades, and then assembling the building. Week 4, we'll be shingling the roof and painting the base and installing the roof. And then on week 5, we have the porch roof and the front doors and gingerbread trim to put on, the chimney base, and we'll assemble some ladders, and also the weathering. Now, this is the prototype, and this is up in Elton Bay. The building was built in 1894 for $500, and it's still standing there today. And as you can see, it looks very much like our kit does. They haven't really done very much in changing or renovations. The only difference that I can see now is they have a roll-up door and some storm windows on it, which I'm sure they appreciate these days. And this is Jeff's kit that he takes to shows. This one is in HO scale. Next time I see him, he'll also have an S scale version that he can show at shows. But this shows the colors that I used and how it's going to come out looking. I didn't do a lot of weathering on mine because the fire station is usually kept in pretty good shape. It's not like a general store or something. And so while I did a little bit of fading paint, in general, the building is in good shape. And I think that's appropriate for a fire station.
Now, I would like to say, hold on, Craig. I would like to say the N, S, and O scale, your chimney is square instead of rectangular shape like the HO scale. So,
okay, yeah, all I'm really familiar with is the S scale. I know Jeff has mentioned a couple minor differences, but there may be more that he can let people know about. So this is what comes in the kit. You get a nice set of color instructions, and all of the sub-assemblies are sort of broken apart and packaged together. So you can start at one part and not have to open everything just to get going. What we have over here are the main building walls, and these are your tower walls. Now, as you can see here, they consist of 2 layers, sort of a laminate situation. And the outer walls are clapboard, both for the main building and for the tower. And then the inner walls are to give it support. And this way you don't need bracing in the building. And Jeff did a very nice thing in making the grain go the opposite directions between the outer and the inner walls. So once you laminate them together, they're as strong as plywood. And they really hold together well. You have up here the laser cut windows. And from what I understand, the O and S scale have laser cut, and the HO scale has tissue windows. And I believe it's a mixture of both in the N scale.
That is true.
These laser cut windows went together very nicely, and I was very happy to work with them. Down here, you have the laser cut doors, and they get put together from a couple of pieces. You also have a couple extra parts here, the chimney cap and the front valance for the porch. Up here, you have the roof for the tower, and this is the roof parts for the porch. And then what you have here is the roof trim and some of the gingerbread that goes on the front of the building. Now up here you have the diamond cut shingles, which is one of the unusual things about this. I've only done diamond cut shingles once before. I'm not going to say they're trickier, but there's a technique you need to make sure that you adhere to. But when they're done, they come out looking oh so nice. And then here is the base that it sits on, and I ended up painting it to look like concrete. And here are your full color instructions, and they give a good job at showing what you're supposed to be putting together. So let's go ahead and put the tower together first. It's a good way to get you started with this tab and slot construction and the laminate way of putting the walls together. So you have the outer pieces here, and inner pieces, obviously it's easy to tell which one goes with the window. The important thing to note on all the inner walls is the tab goes to the top, because that tab will go into a roof section of the tower. Now, as I said, for painting mine, I wanted it to have a little bit of a worn look, not like a brand new out of the box type look. So I did do some dry brushing while I was putting the paint on, but I didn't do it to the extent where it looks like the paint is peeling or anything. I did try a couple of stains on the bottom to see how it looked afterwards. And you can see here, it doesn't have the effect of peeling paint, but it does look like it's a little weather worn, and probably they'll need to repaint this building in a few years. So once I got that look that I liked, I put the dry brushing on all 4 panels. And then I came back and I went over it with this Hunterline greige. And I like it because it tones down the look and it kind of blends it together. So you don't have any large variations, and it makes the whole thing look like it's in fairly good shape, but the kind of variations that you're going to get in an actual building. And once I was done with that, I went ahead and cut out all of the different pieces for the outer wall. Now, once I cut them out, you have the little tabs where you cut them, and you're cutting with the grain, so it's real easy to do. But I used a sanding stick and just sanded down all the nubs so that it was nice and smooth across that edge. And then whenever I'm working with clapboard, I'll always go on the backside and put a mark so I know which is the top. It's very easy sometimes to put clapboard together upside down, and you may not notice until it's too late. And then you'll never stop noticing it. So I always mark something, especially if it's a piece where it isn't obvious. Say it has a door, or in this case, the V that I know goes into the roof. So once I had all my pieces painted and stained, I went ahead and started to assemble them with the inner walls. Now, because I didn't put very much stain on, I didn't have any warping of this wood. Sometimes if you put a lot of stain or a lot of paint on something, you might have to brace it because it's going to start warping. This didn't, just because I didn't have a lot on. But once you glue it on to the inner wall, you're not going to have any kind of problems like that. The only thing that I noticed when I was test fitting was a couple of my tabs were just a touch big. And this may be just in my kit where this happened.
Humidity.
So I just used my Ultimation sander and took a little bit off of the tab, and then it fit perfectly. And that's what you want, is this nice flush fit so the tab can fit into the slot there. So I put an X of glue onto each inner wall and glued it with my outer wall. And then to make sure everything was lined up, I put it between two of my blocks, and that way the inner wall and the outer wall were perfectly aligned to each other. And again, make sure your tab is to the top and that your clapboard is facing the right way. Now, once I did all 4 walls, I taped them together. And there was one thing that I wanted to check because the kit was still new to me. I've done a number of towers and clerestories on the top of buildings, and there's 2 ways of doing it. You can either have a big notch for the entire tower, and it sits on top of a regular roof, or as Jeff did, he has a hole cut in the roof, and this fits into it. And what I wanted to make sure is sometimes when it's sitting on top of the roof, you have to sand these edges so that they fit flush. But in this case, I did a test fit and it fits perfectly without any sanding. I have a 90-degree block sitting under this, so I just put the 2 roof pieces together. They're not assembled yet. And you can see here how the inner wall slides right down into the hole, and the outer wall, that V, sits right over it. And this side wall, you don't need to do any type of beveling to it because it sits right inside the hole there. And it's very good engineering.
Thank you.
You make me nervous watching me do that. Now, this is the roof to the tower. I went and painted the underside of it the same color that all the clapboard is painting. And I painted the inside of my tower a black. I wasn't sure how easy it would be to see in that window. And I didn't want people just seeing what looked like plywood on the inside there. If you were going to light it up, you'd definitely want to do something on the inside of the tower. At this point, I went ahead and used tacky glue and just using the tabs and slots, glued the 4 walls together, and at the same time, put all of the tabs into the roof of the tower. And I used my clamps to hold it together while I was drying. Now, while that was drying, I got out the strip wood that came for the corner posts on the tower. And I went ahead and put those in place. And I angled the bottom of them. And you can see how they get angled because they're on the outside and they need the same angle as this V that sits on the roof. And then just glued them in the 4 corners. And we have our tower done. So next week 2, we'll be assembling and painting the walls, painting and assembling the doors, and then painting the corner trim for the main building. And so that's it. Are there any questions about it?
I would like to say the char marks that you saw on the tower, I have cleaned my laser since, so you won't get the char marks on the outside.
Well, how will we know where you cut it then?
Well, Jeff, thanks again for doing this with us. And Greg, great build. I'm looking forward to next week.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Well, now let's go to Sylvan Models. Claire Gilbert is the owner of that company. And Bill Davis is going to be building this 1929 CBR boxcar kit in both HO and O scale. So Bill, welcome.
Okay, so let's see. I hit the share button. Is that what I do here?
Yes.
Okay, there we go there. Okay, now let's see your desktop. And by the way, that's a picture of my town in 1925.
My God, you're an expert with this.
Okay, I gotta find my thing here. All right, here we go. And we want to go to full screen or slideshow. All right. We have all kind of stuff on it later.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we're going to be building a Sylvan Models CN Canadian National 1929 single sheet boxcar. The Canadian National in 1929 through 1931, they had 9,653 of these cars built. They were built by 3 companies, the CC&F, the NSC, and Eastern Car. These cars were 40-foot long with drug-knot ends and Hutchins dry lading roofing. And they had either wood doors or steel doors. Interesting thing about the wood doors and the steel doors is that so only about 300 of the cars got the wood doors, the rest all got steel doors, or excuse me, about 3,000 cars got that, and then the rest all got steel doors. But the thing is, as they got shopped and rebuilt, these doors got interchanged between cars. So a car could come in with steel doors and go out with wood doors, vice versa. So it was kind of like, you know, anything goes type of thing. Now this is looks like pretty much maybe a prototype photo of the thing, a builder's photo, I mean. Note that it has K-brakes on it. And these are Dahlman 2-level trucks. Apparently Canadian railroads love those trucks. I know there is a set made in O scale. I don't know what's available in HO. If there is any like that available, if somebody knows, let me know. And this car here, you'll notice that first thing, it has AB brakes on it. And then over here, you'll notice that it's much lower than the car next to it. I couldn't find dimensions as to interior height or any of that kind of stuff on this particular type of car, but it is obviously smaller than the steel car next to it. So a little history about O scale and HO scale. O scale was introduced by German toy manufacturer Markland around 1900. It was 7 millimeters. This made the track gauge correct for the common standard gauge around the world. When O scale came to America, they didn't want to use metric, so they tried various scale sizes like 1764s to maintain the standard gauge of 4 foot 8.5. It was difficult, to say the least, to deal with 1764s, so it was decided to settle on 1/4 inch as O scale in America. That created a problem with the track gauge, because now the 1 1/4 inch gauge is 5 feet instead of 4 foot 8.5. That compromise became standard for O scale to this day. However, fine scalers have decided to correct this through movements like the 1/4 AAR in the 60s, which is today led by today's Proto 48. Personally, that's my choice. I would like to have the gauge be correct. I'd like to have the wheels have not oversized flanges and other issues like that. So I'm willing to make the extra effort to get that kind of detail level on my models. After World War I, HO was developed in Europe. It was designed to be half the size of O. The issue was smaller homes and smaller models to be being cheaper brought about this development. Unlike O scale, when HO came to America, they retained the metric system. And so HO truly is half O because at the time O scale being 7 millimeters. Why O scale didn't want to stay with the metric system, I don't know. Why HO didn't go to 1/8 inch, I don't know that either. So this is a kind of a picture of the gauges in O scale. Now the bottom four here is like ON3, which would be 3 foot gauge, ON30, which would be 30-inch gauge, ON2, which would be 2-foot gauge, and ON18, which would be 1'6". But on the top here, you have traditional O scale, which is 5 feet. But next to it, below it, is the 4 foot 8.5. Now, that's only a 1/16 of an inch less, roughly. But, you know, you go all out to get as much detail and get things as correct as possible. But then you put oversized wheels with wrong gauge. So, like I said, to me, that's just wrong. And so I won't do it. Now, here we have the O scale body for the Selvin kit and the HO body. And in theory, the HO is half the size of the O scale, but in mass, the O scale kit is 8 times bigger than the HO kit, HO body. So there's a tremendous amount of difference in the detail level and the options you have to build in an O scale model as opposed to an HO model. So what's in the box? Well, this was interesting. The HO model had the body, had the underframe, roof walk, and 2 sets of doors. You had the wooden doors and the steel doors. These pieces were part of the underframe. These pieces here were part of the roof walk. I'm missing a door bottom piece. These were part of the underframe here. These are Tichy ladders. These are grab irons. I'm not quite sure why this is in here, but I'll figure it out. There were 2 different style brake wheels and a lot of little itty bitty parts. I'm not used to little itty bitty parts, so this is going to be interesting to see how this all works out. The O scale kit is a little different in that this is the body, this is the frame. Now, I did some modifications. We'll discuss that in a minute here. There's decals in both the HO and the O scale. Once again, you have the 4 doors. You have a piece to go on top of the center sill to make it look like a channel. You got the doors tracks. You've got the brake, where the brake comes through. No, we don't do that. Where the brakes come through under the frame. Over here is some brake hardware, which I'm going to replace in my model, and some other small parts over here and some wire. But there was no grab irons and some of the other things in the HO kit. There were some things in the O scale kit that weren't in the HO kit. So it's going to be kind of interesting to assemble these 2 models. Now, since I want to do P48, I'm going to use scale couplers. I'm not going to use KD couplers. So I don't have a KD coupler box. So I modified the end and cut the center sill right even with the end of the body bolster. And then using 2 pieces of 1/4-inch channel, I replaced the area where the coupler is going to fit with channels on each side, and then inside here where the coupler will sit when we get ready to mount it. Now, these brass pieces here are Protocraft, and they are really cool. You drill a hole, you put these 2 pieces on there, and you've got this perfect system for attaching your trucks. I don't know if anything like that's available in HO, but in O scale, that's just an amazing piece of work that they've designed there. And they just press fit in about an 1/8-inch hole, no, about a 1/4-inch hole. So now weight. Weight's an interesting subject. I don't believe in heavy weights on cars. So the HO car, the O scale car, I just added a couple of washers just to get it up a little bit. But that made the car weigh, without trucks and couplers, 12 ounces, almost 13 ounces. The HO kit, a friend of mine loaned me a couple of tape weights. And the NMRA standard said that an HO car that was 40 feet long should be 3 ounces, 3.8 ounces. That's what it was, 3.8 ounces. So the car right now without trucks and couplers is 2.8 ounces. I figure couplers and trucks will bring it up to the HO standard weight. The only problem with weighting things, I think, is, back in the day when we had lousy track and oversized wheels and all these other issues to deal with, and poor rolling wheels and stuff like this, we needed a lot of weight in the cars. I don't feel that that's necessary. However, we have the issue of some models are made out of brass, some models made out of plastic, some models made out of resin. So you have to have some kind of standardization in there. So I try to keep things not super heavy, but heavy enough to track well. So I found 3 articles on the subject of this car, and I will put these in the chat if I can figure out how to do that. Railroad Model Craftsman's November 2003 Essential Freight Cars number 8 has an article concerning this, and also the HO model is being built there by TIT, but it's not the Sylvan model, it's a different brand. O-Scale Resources, November, December 2019. Dan, is it Dan, Jim?
Yeah, Dan Darden.
Dan Darden builds this car. And then there was a gentleman in New England who had a website, and he also assembled this car. So that's pretty much where we're at for this time. Next time we'll deal with some plumbing underneath the on the underframe, gluing the underframe into the body, and we'll be doing some detailing of the body. Any questions?
Bill, I really appreciate you doing this, both the and showing the difference between the HO and the O scale. I think is really valuable for some modelers, particularly maybe trying to decide which scale they want to model in. So thanks so much for doing this.
Well, I'm hoping that's what will come out of this whole series. And I guess I'm going to learn a little bit myself. I mean, I've done HO modeling in the past and stuff like this, but it's never been my forte to do that. I got hooked up with O scale in the early 70s and never looked back.
But we won't hold that against you.
That's good. That's good. Well, you're an O-scale modeler too, so don't.
Yeah, but see, I'm traction guy. So
well, that's it. Well, we can talk about that another time.
A lot of O-scalers don't even want to hear me. So
no, I actually like traction stuff like this. Matter of fact, I have a group of guys that I send a video to like every day except for Sunday, and this week's been heavy traction.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate
it. So how do I go about doing this so that I can transfer those articles into the chat?
I don't know, but somebody will tell you shortly, but I got to move on because this show is getting
so
ahead.
Long. Go ahead.
Pat, let me come back to you before we go to our last modeler here, if you're ready.
Can everyone see that?
No, it's getting there.
Should be able to see it now.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is.
Thanks, Martin. All right, as we're working with cast metal parts in a kit. Just going ahead.
Pat,
Yes.
will you click on display settings and switch what we see? We're seeing the slide presenter slide screen, not the show. Go up to the top where it says display settings.
You can go right here.
Okay. And click on that. Go click on it.
Yep.
And say swap. Yeah, click that.
Okay. There we go.
Thanks.
What are you seeing now?
I'm not seeing
There you go.
There it is.
Just had to refresh. It's all good. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Phil. As you can see, we're building an O-scale fixed boom crane kit number 308 from Crow River Products. It's made of rosin and metal. I'd say about 80% of this kit is metal. Now, if we can move along, we'll go to where we left off last time. And let's see. Yeah, here we are. Yep. as I made a really big boo-boo here. I put this thing together and I realized that the pulley was on there for the cable, and I didn't have the rope wrapped around it. So that's one of these things you kind of have to watch when you're doing a kit. It kind of makes it hard to put it on after it's assembled. And I learned this the hard way. The first time I did it right, the second time I did it wrong. So you can see what happens when you take it off here. You have to kind of scrape the crazy glue off. Otherwise, it isn't going to glue back on after you get your rope wrapped around this pulley. Anyway, moving along. There's another part that gave me a whole lot of trouble, and this part is made out of plastic, and this part is made out of metal. So in order to get this thing to hold into place, I have a whole bunch of these little clothespin type clamps, and that kind of helped me hold it in place while the crazy glue set. And you can also see the gear that fits on the bottom of this boom. The boom is made out of resin, and this is made out of metal. It goes through the bottom plate, and it is put in place for the motor to turn this gear and turn the whole boom assembly. As you can see, this is how it works. This here is actually an electric motor. I had to drill a hole again. This is another thing you're going to find out every time you turn around. None of the holes are the right size, especially on this pulley on the boom. I found that this hole goes through this pulley wasn't right on this bearing here. So I had to drill out all the bearings so that this shaft would fit through it. So that's another thing you're going to run into a problem with a lot of these kits. And moving along, you can see the bearing down here, and here's them good old files that I use. This one happens to be the round file. And that helps to clean some of this off and hold pieces down as I glue them. Here you can see that gear that I put on that pulley. And this happens to be just before I ripped it back off again to put the rope back on it, or the cable back on. But you'll notice that it's a two-part casting, and this is why you have to file as best you can, because actually these two sections on that gear are offset. They're not perfectly aligned. And I think that's partly because it was come out of the casting that way, or out of the mold that way. Anyway, you'll see these are the two brass tubes that I put down through the top. That was another set of holes I had to re-drill in order to fit. And you got another set of holes here that go back this way that hold your boom, as you'll see when we move along. Now here's how the gears line up to the large electric motor that turns this unit. And there's that pulley and that gear on the other side. And that's that shaft and the holes that I had to pre-drill through these gears in order for them to fit on. You're going to find this a lot with kits like this. Is you have to check them before you start assembling them to make sure that the shafts fit. There's that small electric motor that actually turns this gear at the bottom. Then there is the pulley again without the cable on, which I forgot. This is after the fact. And there's the large electric motor sitting on a base that has the gears mounted to them so that they align together. You'll find you have to fit this in, dry fit it to make sure it will fit this gear, because you're going to glue them in place. You can't make them turn that I know of. I tried that trick, but it won't work. But I had to re-drill the holes in these in order to fit and make sure they aligned up properly before you glued them. And here's another picture of that. You'll see here, I had to drill that hole to fit that shaft on that pulley. And the same thing here. They're basically about the same size. And I'll tell you, when you're drilling them, you got to be really careful. You don't drill through your hand. I use a Dremel. It's the only way you can do the job properly. Then I clean it up a little bit afterwards. Now here you'll see the gear on the other side of the pulley that fits this small gear right here. Some more holes to clean up and fit. Then there's the base on which it mounts. And this part here is actually glued down to this base. This base is made out of cast plastic. It's a rosin plastic, big solid piece. There's a rear view of it. And you can see the bearings mounted on the boom itself. Another thing you're going to have to watch out for in working with metal parts, a lot of these metal parts here have a tendency to bend very easily. And you have to be very careful when you're assembling them that you don't bend them out of shape or get them in the, if you bend them too much, they will break off very easily. Then right here where it fits into the base, I found I had to clean this up a little bit for it to fit right in very snugly or very evenly. There's those two brass rods that go to your boom assembly. These support your boom assembly permanently. It does not move up or down. That's why I call it a fixed boom crane. And this here is supposed to be the nut that holds this shaft. And then there's another nut on the other side, besides the guy putting it together, that you have to put on that one. So everything has to fit together properly. Here's the overall picture of this with the cross members put on. Those are plastic. I put nut and bolt castings on every one of them, on all this part, and made sure this pulley fit in there. That's another one I had to drill a hole through and put the nut on to make sure it fit properly. A lot of drilling, grinding, sanding, filing. After a while, you start to get a little disappointed, but it comes together. There's the gears and the pulley. Now, as you'll see, I spray painted this with a primer, the whole kit, after it was assembled. And that gave me the bite that I needed for the paint work to stick to it. And the paint that I used was not paint so much as it was powders. I used the Bragdon powders, and I also used the Dr. Benz powders. And I use it with a brush and alcohol. And I make the mixture kind of thick to go on so it colors properly. And I like the base color, it leaves a very flat color. Here's the assembly of the cab. That's all made of rosin. And every one of these pieces are put together. This is one back and front, are both the same. There's your base and there's your side with the door, and the other side has a window also. So there's actually a window all the way around so you can see what you're doing. I added lights to this. I like adding lights to everything I build. And it was fun doing that, I'll tell you. Now you can see where I painted the cab. And it wasn't paint again. I used the powders. You can see the powder mix here. And it used with a stiff brush. I like to use a stiff brush because it gives a better finish on it. After that, I used different colors, as you see here, to give it a tone down from the yellow that I had. And you'll see that I mounted the toolbox on the side of the cab that comes with the kit. There's an overall view of the cab mounted to the crane. There was two pieces that stuck out from the side of the crane, which just mounted on. So you're mounted to one side of the crane. Inside, I put a figure, he's waving at somebody. I found that quite interesting. After you get done, you light it up and you see his figure with his hand up in the air, waving at you. Here's it is mounted, installed on my building. This is my planing mill that I assembled. This gives you an overall view of what it looks like sitting on this platform. There's another view. And you can see how I had the rope put down through and over the top and down and through a big hook. There's another view. This thing spins on that, so it turns. I have it turning, and you can see where I routed the cables through the floor. Leave yourself a lot of slack in that because you're going to turn this thing. You're going to have it going in and out on you. It's too hard to mount it along the side of this because if you turn it, it'll break it right off. These wires are very thin. And you also see on the side, I put the brass handrails for grabbing when you mount on it, and there's a little ladder on the side here you put in. There's another view, top view. And there's the cable I mounted on there. As you can see, it's very difficult to wind this thing around and make it look right without putting it on before you assemble it.
Mhm.
If you don't do that, you'll have a heck of a time. I tried it once before and it won't work, so I made sure I put it on and put it back on in the right position. This gives you a better picture of it. It's very hard to wind up a whole lot of cable on there without having a lot of trouble. Here you can see the gear didn't turn out too bad with the extra filing I did. That was the first one I built. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it when you get done. There's another view of the other one that I built. I have 3 of these to build. So it's going to become quite a challenge to do the third one. I might try some different tricks again. But as you go, you learn, and you don't get anywhere unless you try it. There's a view of the other model.
That's some nice models, though. They really are.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun, and it's quite rewarding when you get done with a metal kit.
Yeah.
Any questions, don't be afraid to ask, because I'm not the complete professional at building one of these things. And that's it.
Pat, are you using powders for your rusting also?
Yes. I know it. It's I don't know. You'll find that it's quite tricky sometimes.
Are they artist pigments or?
That is a good question. I don't know what Dr. Ben's
Oh, okay. Yeah, most of his are.
Yeah.
I've got one of his rust powders, and it's the same as a lot of the artist pigments that I order from art supply houses.
It works well with alcohol.
Oh, they
I
sure
find
do, yeah.
I was very amazed at how it does the job. It's just like painting. The more alcohol you use, the more wash you have. So that's the whole trick of it. Like the roof itself, I found that it was I did it with the black, and it was very flat looking, and it looked like it was tar when it was done.
Well, they're impressive looking models. They really are.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks a lot. It was fun doing.
Well,
I have
thank you
one that's
so-
even more complicated coming. It's a thrashing machine. I got a thrashing machine to put together, and it's all metal. So I don't know about that one.
Well, show it to us when you get it done.
Yeah, I'll show it to you, but I'm not going through all this. Thanks.
Well,
Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, now let's turn to Earl Hackett. And tonight we're pleasantly surprised to have with us Kristen Kimmer, Kimmick, who is also going to be in charge of our women in modeling segments for our shows that we're calling Petticoat Junction News. So Kristen and your company, 3DP Train, has offered to do the printing for the 3D prints that Earl has showed us how to produce at a discount of 10%. And I really do appreciate you doing that, and for being here with us this evening while Earl tries to finish up the actual design of the bridge parts.
Yeah, thank you. We are going to be offering a promo code that will be up on the website once we get to the point of getting them printed. When you go to the website, 3dptrain.com, there's a bar on the top that says create, and click that and it'll show you a little menu to upload your print, follow the instructions, and then the code is going to be NTM22 for the 10% off discount for when you're printing the bridges off. So when you print those, we'll upload them, we'll print them and ship them out to you guys all over wherever you are.
And this is any scale, right?
Yes. They need to be put into the program with the scale you want, though. So they need to be pre-scaled. So during that the end process, you can transform them into whatever scale you want, and then they need to be uploaded in that scale so that we can print them.
Okay.
So
Now, with that said, Kristen is going to be back next week to talk about her company and what their products are that they produce and so forth, and a little bit about she and her husband, David, who run the company. And Kristen, I really do appreciate you doing this for us. And most importantly, I appreciate you doing the women in modeling portion of our series. I really think that this has some true potential for our shows, and I really do appreciate you wanting to do this.
yeah, I'm really excited to do it. We've been doing shows all over, and it's been amazing to talk to the women who come up to our booth and are like, well, we're not really a modeler, but I help my husband do it. Like, you're a real modeler. So finding those women and talking to them is going to be really fun.
I think it will be too, and I really appreciate you doing it. And we will see you next week to hear more about your company and what you're involved with.
Yep, sounds good.
Thank you. So Earl, you're finishing now tonight, right? The actual build?
That's correct.
And so then once you finish tonight getting the parts built, then their next process is going to be to get them printed. Either they print it themselves, or they find somebody to print it, or they use Kristen's company to print them.
Right.
And then you'll come back, I believe it's on the 21st, and actually start building the bridge from the parts that everybody by that time will have had printed.
Okay. Yeah. So let's get on with it here.
right.
Tonight I'm going to go over downloading the STL file. We'll go all the way through setting up the model on a printer, printing it, post-processing, and cleaning it up, ready for painting. So we'll share screen. There. Okay, this is the couple slides here. And first thing you have to do is download the STL file. And I have a couple little videos, video clips, and I'll just narrate them as we go along. So this is from downloading it from Onshape. So we have to sign into Onshape. And this is pretty straightforward. Once you sign in, you can select your model that I have several of them in there. Bring it up. Now, when you go to download it, you have to select what you want. If you just click one thing, you're going to get that one little bit. So you have to select the entire model. It takes a second. There's a lot of parts on there. It takes a second for it to pick it all up. And then you right-click it and you select export. And you're going to have to give it a name. So I'm creative. I called it bridge. And everything else is pretty much for standards. It's STL file, binary format. It's in millimeters, fine resolution, and you're going to download it. And it'll send this file to your download file, or your download folder. This takes a few seconds. There's a lot of stuff, and I'll show you why there's a lot of stuff here in just a few minutes. So it comes down. This is rather strange because it came down as this download here. I don't know what that is, but this is my video editing program. So I open it up in the video editor, which of course doesn't understand it at all. When I closed it, it came out as the bridge. I have no idea what's going on there, but I wound up with the STL file, and we'll show you what an STL file looks like in just a second here. Now I gotta click on this there. This is what the STL file actually is. It's a bunch of triangles, and large panels like this are broken down into just 2 triangles. But when you have rivets, they make lots and lots and lots of triangles. And this is what takes so long. They use triangles because when you're doing the computation for getting the slicing it, it sends a ray, mathematically sends a line, a three-dimensional line through here, and that line is very quick to determine where and what the coordinates are for the intersection of that line to one of these triangles. So it's a mathematical reason they do this. But you can see that there's a lot of calculations that go on here, and these files get quite large. Okay. Once you've downloaded it, you have an STL file, and you're going to slice it up into pieces. The slicer software, I use two of them, and they're both free, the free versions. You can buy a more sophisticated commercial version, but I haven't found a need for it yet. One is Lychee, and the other is ChudoBox. A ChudoBox comes with Elegoo printers. Lychee is another one you can download. Neither is perfect except for the very simplest models. In other words, they just stick the supports wherever they want to. So I usually wind up just using their suggestions and doing it manually. And the big thing is you don't want to place supports where they can be seen because they leave little divots and defects of the surface. So let's take a look here at ChudoBox with the with rivets. I'm going to fire up ChudoBox, and then I'm going to download, open up the bridge. The bridge comes in, and it's 90 degrees from where it should be, so you have to rotate it. So we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. And now it's lined up where you want it. So now we have to add supports. And this is going to do it all. This is doing it automatically. It just does it for you. Now that's not a bad job. Now in this case here, I asked for. I'm going to pause this for a second. There's things I want to show you. You see, one thing I did, I've asked for light rivets, the finest rivets they make. And yeah, there is light. These are the smallest ones they use. And I'd rather have lots and lots of little ones than one great big fat one. But if you see how many they put along these braces, these braces are quite delicate and they support them very, very well. Now, remember early on I said I screwed up and I put rivets on the bottom of the bridge, and this is what happens if you put rivets there. Every rivet gets a support, and cutting through all those supports would be a nightmare. So that's why you don't put rivets on the bottom of the bridge. One thing I did like was the way they supported these upper flanges. So I follow their suggestions on that. Okay, so he's out of there. Now, here's ChudoBox without the rivets. I like ChudoBox. It's a much more logical, much more thought out automatic system for working with these things. You'll see the problem with Lychee in a few minutes. Again, it's got to rotate it, get it lined up. It does it pretty quickly. Now did I do it with? I did the wrong one. Wait a minute. I did this. Here, this is the one I want. Now the first one here is just orientation. Click this one. This starts to put the supports on. But I've selected heavy. You can customize these supports all you want, but now you can see they've most of the supports are along the outer edges of the component, so that it's getting supported. And again, nice uniform supports on all the little cross braces there. Now, we're going to go to Lychee. You're going to see this is very different. This is the Lychee software. You can tell that most of their customers are making these game pieces for whatever. Now, in this case, you just drag the files from your drag the files in to load them up. And this is not quite as fast as the other. It's a little bit slower. And again, you got to rotate the stupid thing, but it's hit rotate, and down here it says rotate. We're going to Z-axis hit 90 and it puts it where you want it. Now, you might have noticed that Shurgold lifted that bridge automatically, lifted it off the base. This one does not, and I asked for 10 millimeters, and I probably should have asked for 20, but now we're going to go to putting in this. So now they have the automatics feature here. There's things that they have. I don't want it to auto orient. I want it the way I have it. Auto supports are on. Optimized supports are on. I don't want bracings, and I don't want the raft. I want light supports, and off it goes. Now it does weird stuff. Okay, it puts supports where I have no idea why it does this, but you can see the number of supports on these braces here they're not very many of them. And they're irregular. This one has quite a few. There's sections here that have nothing. Let me back this up. There's a couple other things that really stop that. Okay. This is what they call a light support. It's a very fine wire. Why they put it there, I have no idea. You can see that in some areas they don't bother supporting things. Other areas they put lots of supports, some supports in, but it's very irregular, not like Shurgold at all. So in general, I don't really particularly like this, the way they do this automatically. It's but what it is, it's a very nice one for doing it manually. And I'll demonstrate that in a few minutes. Okay. When you're doing your own supports, this was an automatic one from Lychee. I put the bridge into my little Mars 2 printer. It doesn't fit, so you have to tilt it on end. But it fits, and you can print it in the smaller printers, but you have these big, long supports, and you put an awful lot of resin into these supports here. It's probably more resin in the supports than are in the model. So it's not really efficient. The other thing is when you tilt something like this, you have to support this end, this surface here, and here, and here. Now, in this case, it's not so big a deal because when you put the ties in and everything, it hides them. But if this was a surface that was going to be seen and visually, it would be it's really difficult to clean that up so it looks good. So you have to be very careful about how you position these parts the components in a printer so that you don't mess up the what you want to be the Class A surfaces. So manual supports. I'm going to let's see, is it over here? Yeah. I'm going to bring up Lychee Serve. This is a very new one, brand new. And I'm going to put in the I don't want that. So I'm going to load a file. I'm going to put the bridge in here. I'm going to just show you a little bit about manual. I'm not going to spend much time on this. You can figure this out. This is all pretty straightforward. But this is in real time. I'm not going to do the whole thing. And this is their latest version of it, and I'm not completely familiar with it. Let's rotate. Oh, here it is up here. You have to tell it you want to rotate it. Rotate 90. Okay. All right, now, so we're going to move it, and we're going to move, I'll make 10 millimeters. So that moves it 10 millimeters off the plate. So if you want to get a let's just do it. Just throw some in here. It does a better job, but still not great. This is the one with the rivets, so it puts all these rivet pieces in here. So let's see, move, object repair. I probably should have kept my old one. Ah, phooey. No, I've had this for one day and phooey. I'm not going to bother. It's a waste of time. Basically, you can go in there and you can put supports in as manually. And I'm still filing. I've had this one for 24 hours and I haven't really figured out how to use it yet. They shoved it on me as oh, you're out of date. Here, have this. And I still haven't figured out how to use it. So okay, the next thing is printing the model. Now, can you hear me talking there?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, you heard that? Yeah.
Earl, do you mean talking on the video?
Yeah.
No, we can't hear that. Just you
Okay.
talking.
Fine. The this is the printer going. It's a vat of polymer. It goes into the vat, and light comes on and it polymerizes the stuff it's on the surface. And what this is doing right there is printing a base for it to stick it to the aluminum plate. And this is about a 30-second exposure. Normal exposures would be about 3 or 4 seconds, something like that. So this is all it does the whole time, just a little probably bump like that goes up and down. And finally, it does about 1/1000th of an inch a minute every 30 seconds. Now, you notice I'm wearing gloves now. These materials are not toxic, but you can become sensitized to them and you can develop a really nasty dermatitis. So this is the dirty solvent here, and you throw it in there and just slosh it around for about 30 seconds. And I've cut some of this out, and I rinse it a little bit with some clean ethanol. This is just ethyl alcohol, anhydrous ethanol, well, 95% ethyl alcohol. Rinse it off just so I get rid of the gross stuff off of there and it stays in the dirty tank, because now I have a tank of clean ethanol. And I'll stick it in there and give it a rinse. So it gives it about 30 seconds. See, it's about a minute of rinsing like this to clean off all the. It's 90% ethanol, 95% ethanol. No. So give it another clean to this, and then there you go. Now this video I made about a year ago. It's not the bridge, but it's all the same. It's all done the same way. So this is going to go into my little ultrasonic cleaner now, and get the final cleaning. It's just a 5% solution of Dawn detergent, and it'll go in there for 3 minutes. I'm not going to show the whole thing. I'll cut it off. But you take this knife and you just work it underneath and pop it off just like that. Drop it in, push the button, and after 3 minutes, it's ready to go. I'll take it over to my wash sink and just wash it in some clean water. And that's all there is to it. It's not a complicated process. Now, you can purchase a post-cure station. Now I just rinse it off with a little more ethanol just to make it dry faster. It has to be dry when it goes into the post-cure unit. So that just gets the water off of there. I gave it a few shakes and it dries pretty quickly. This is a homemade curing station. There's just some strips of 405 nanometer LEDs, black lights basically, wrapped around it's inside of a bucket. And that'll handle about anything I'm building. So I give it about a 2-minute cure in there. It goes a minute, 2 minutes, depending on the size of the part. And any residual material that's on there is cured, and it becomes now you can handle it with your bare hands. It's no longer hazardous. So finally, we go to cleaning up the model, and you have to take off all the supports. Now, I use these things were supplied by Illigu, and notice that I'm holding them at a 45-degree angle. When I cut that thing, it's going to push the two pieces of it away, and you don't want it to push directly against the surface because you may break something. So you try to hold that thing at as close to a 45-degree angle as you can. So once you get those out of the way, then you start attacking the bottom. And the plate the part that they're attached to is pretty darn tough. You're not going to break it. So you could just go at it, chop away for all you're worth. There are a lot of them in there. This is probably the longest, most tedious part of the whole process. Sometimes you can go in there and just break some off with your fingers like that. Just go in and flex them, just pop them, and they come right off.
Too bad you couldn't remelt it all.
Now we're in there. Now I've got further in. You can see all the parts that are the things covered. The paper's covered with these things. They're all over they're all over the place in there. And this is the most time-consuming part of the whole thing. So finally, you get down to where you can break that thing off. Oh my goodness. And I've edited out an awful lot of the time here. It's eventually you'll get down to the point where you can break that big solid piece off the bottom. And now you can just use your fingers and snap them off. And at this point, it starts to go pretty quickly. But now, if you look at that surface, you see how that surface is shiny? This is the bottom surface right here. And that is not a very good surface. So you want that, you know that's going to be pretty crappy. So you want that to be on the bottom of the model or someplace where you can't see the darn thing. So then finally you go back in with your knife and you take out little tiny bits and pieces, any little things that are in there that you had to have. And that's about it for cleaning up the part. It's pretty well done at that point and ready for painting. Okay, so that's the process for producing. As you can see, the time-consuming part is CAD work, and then cleaning it, doing the trimming on the back end is time-consuming. But the printing itself is slow, but you don't have to be there. You can walk away for a couple hours and have a cup of coffee. It takes care of itself. So I just looked at the cost of the model. The weight of the bridge was about 20 grams. Weight of the supports was about 20 grams. The Sierra Tech build resin, which is what I use, is $40 for a kilogram of it. So it's 4 cents a gram. So the cost of the bridge in resin terms was $1.60 plus the printer and the software. It's very inexpensive to build these models once you're set up for them. But there is a problem, and it's the alcohol. If it was a regulated material, this dirty alcohol would be considered a hazardous waste. You don't want to dump it down the drain. And it can get expensive. In the last year, I've used about 5 gallons, costing about $110. If you really have to get rid of it, the best way to dispose of it is to put it in a pan, set it outdoors, and let it evaporate. Don't be tempted to put a match to it to speed up the process. Once it starts boiling, the flames can be unbelievably violent. You don't want to do that. So I've been exploring 2 ways to reclaim this stuff and for reuse. So I'm exploring it right now, and I'm just starting this exploration. So hang on. The first thing was you could polymerize the stuff. My first attempt was just to take that can you saw that I used for post-curing the models, turn it upside down, stick it on top of the dirty solvent, turn it on, and walk away. Give it 10, 15 minutes. And it did a pretty good job. The only problem was that it formed a skin on the surface of the, and yet getting that off, it was messy and didn't work very well. So I put it in a bottle, like that, just a glass bottle, set it on the windowsill. And as you can see, the light from the sun is just polymerizes stuff on the surface, in the inside surface of the bottle. And the alcohol is actually pretty clear. It has a color to it. So it's not pure or anything, but it's a whole lot better than it was when I put it in there. And that's about as far as I've gone in my exploration so far. I'm going to try this and see if it works. If I have any problems with it, The next thing is I can do additional things to bring it back to its original purity. The first thing is distill it. I'm a chemist and I don't mind distilling flammable solvents, but the rule is this is a little 5-gallon still for about $100. Get it at Home Depot. Dump the solvent in here. Put it on a hot plate, not over a campfire like they suggest. Put it on a hot plate. No flames anywhere near it. You have a cooling water here. Cooling water comes in, circulates into this bucket, comes back out. There's a recirculating motor that keeps it flowing. I'd throw ice in there just to make sure it's nice and cold. But the fumes from the solvent come through this pipe, cooled by the water. The clean solvent comes out of here, and you stick it in and run it a tube into a bottle and collect it. Preferably a narrow neck bottle so you don't get much evaporation. Now, the next thing is water. The alcohol absorbs water. The water you need for cleaning these parts, it should be like a 95% alcohol. Alcohol distills at about 95% because it comes over as an azeotrope with any water that's around. It boils. An azeotrope is a combination of materials which boils at a lower temperature than either of the two materials you're distilling. So, no, I just mentioned no flames, keep ice, minimize evaporation with a narrow melt. Yeah, I just mentioned that. I'm looking for a way to make sure I can get all the water out of there that I can. And if I had seen this in some movie on YouTube, I would have said, these people are crazy. But this guy was at Purdue University, and they were working on ways to get water out of alcohol so that it could be used as a fuel. Water, put 95% alcohol in the gasoline in your car, and you just wiped out your carburetor, folks. It'll cause corrosion and all kinds of other problems. They found out that tapioca pearls that you make tapioca pudding from sucks up water like there's no tomorrow and doesn't contaminate the alcohol. So that's what I'm going to try. I'll see how it works. And that's about what I have for you.
God, I'll never look at tapioca again.
Well, we did that bridge, and you don't have to do. This is a little signal tower I printed.
Yeah.
And this is all 3D printed, clapboard and everything. It's a C&O prototype. But I don't know if you can see inside there. That's the model of my roll top bench and me sitting in my chair.
I'll be darned.
And it amazed me that I could actually model that chair because the legs are scale size. It's incredible how detailed, how fine you can make these parts. So at any rate, that's it. And that's how to build a bridge.
All right. So we will see you back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
To start actually putting these parts together. Hopefully by then everybody will have gotten theirs printed.
Well, actually, when they print it, the parts are all in one piece.
Yeah.
Now, maybe if somebody has a smaller printer and they may have to break it down into like the girders and different parts. You could do that. You can make, this one was in, this model was in several pieces here. The chimney, the roof, the basic frame of the body, and the doors, windows, and the stairs were all separate parts. I had to put them together. So
Okay.
yes, you can build it as a kit, but then you have a kit building problem.
Yeah. All right, Earl, thank you so very much. This has been very, very helpful. And like I say, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care now.
Well, folks, I'm so sorry if this has run as long as it has. We did have some technical problems. And like I say, this is a live show. I didn't want to eliminate anything from the show because everybody that you saw has spent a lot of time and effort trying to produce their segments for your enjoyment. And I hope you did enjoy them all. Most importantly, I hope you learned something from them. So let me close out by saying, please visit our website, newtracksmodeling.com. Subscribe to our website And when you get the email from our website, please respond to it. And then you'll be able to get the login links and for all of our future shows. You can join us on Zoom. Also, please visit our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling, and subscribe so that you can be live on that to see all of our modeling lifestyle shows live, as well as over 680 videos that we now have on our YouTube channel. So thanks so much for being here this evening, and we'll see you hopefully in a week for the next segment of New Tracks Modeling. And until then, best of modeling to you. It's so late. I really don't think that we need an after show tonight, unless somebody has something that particularly they'd like to talk about. And then if they do, then we'll stay for a while. But if you don't, then thanks for coming. So I'll open this up to see if anybody has something that they'd like to discuss.
Any news on the sick people?
I have not heard anything about the sick people. I would be glad if anybody else has. I do know, I take that back. I know that Paul Egret was ill, but since he was on the show this evening, I'm assuming that he's feeling better. But I have not talked to him personally. I did get an email from him this week earlier explaining his illness. But I'm just happy that he felt good enough to be on a show tonight. But I have not heard about Chris or Ted.
I think Chris is still recuperating. He came out of the hospital and he's doing a lot of resting now. He had to go back for doctor's tests. That's the traveling he was doing.
Yeah,